Okay, and I think then we are ready to start. So our presenter today is Yoshi Arazumi. I hope I did that reasonably well. He is an adjunct instructor here, but also has a very deep history in designing instruction. And you can see the title of his presentation here, A Universal Performance Improvement Method. We're excited for him to share some of his ideas and thoughts with us today. If you'll join me in welcoming Yoshi to our seminar.
Well, since this is the beginning of the year, and then I am very interested in helping, including myself, people to achieve their goal. So my first question is, have you set your New Year's resolution here? Most of the people I talked with last 1 week or so, they don't have a particular the goal. Okay, the second question is, have you written down your goal? Wait, just a half or less than half the people write down. And have you usually write down your goal? Do you share your goal with someone else? Let's see, that's good. And the fourth one is, do you usually monitor your progress toward your goal and then report your progress report to someone else? Okay, so those fourth point is significantly, according to the one article recently I reviewed, and comparing with a university student without goal, and then with the goal, write down and have a share that someone to share with the goal, and then report regularly to someone. The difference after four months, achievement rate is about 1.8 times higher for the group with those 5 steps. So my method, Shigen-iku method, is when I seriously doing some project, I usually follow those four steps naturally, because it's the principles of this Shigen-iku method help me to do those 4 things. So the result was very significant, very impressive. So today I'd like to share this universal performance improvement method, which is called the Shigen-iku. And I thought the Japanese, it may be good to introduce some Asian-like concept to the academia. And so I try to keep this Chinese characters. Like the Kaizen, probably you may heard of the Toyota automotive companies use the Kaizen method and to improve. But Shigen-iku method did not come from that Japanese tradition. Even Japanese people are meticulous and following the procedure and so forth, but it's not the case. Shigen is this is a scriptural concept. Usually we use a slightly different Chinese characters, but Shigen is a source of intelligence. And the intelligence, the being of intelligence, we coexisted with the Heavenly Father from the eternal past. So that kind of intelligence I mean here. And then Hiku is a nurture. So wake up that intelligence hidden us and then utilize that and to promote our activity to improve our performance. That's the idea of this method. This method has a three let's see. The characteristic of Shigen-iku is principle-based. So 5 principles it has. Enrich, establish ownership, number 1. Enrich locality, number 2. Embrace chaos, number 3. Evolve cycles, and then elevate reflection. Those 5 principles. So principle-based, so it is very applicable, very broad area. Any kind of activity you can improve. The second point is theory-driven. Those 5 principles is very theoretical and abstract. So if you follow like a theoretical framework, and then it is easy to apply in any kind of thing which sometimes unknown, very unfamiliar thing. You can apply its method. And then the third one is, in the process of developing this method, I try to think in without spiritual element, we cannot achieve the things continuously. Somehow, if we're not spiritually in tune, eventually we hit the wall, so to speak, and then we cannot continue. So spiritual encouraging element is important. So some of the principles and the more technical aspect of the principles are related to spiritually engaging things. Okay. And okay, so I'd like to explain just like a brief history of its development process. I finished my dissertation in here at IP&T in 1998. But before, a couple of years before, I already began. So this study was inspired by a lot of great influence of late Ivan Inoue. Yeah, some of it's too long ago, but he was one of the professors here and the mentor when I was doing the dissertation. And one day he guided me to bring to the workshop where educational action research was talking about. And it was, so that was the first introduction. It was around 1993-4. And at that time, I became interested, but it was very enigmatic concept. What is action research? It's not the basic research, or it's not the applied research. Action research is like starting with the locality and coming back and to improve the local reality. So it's quite enigmatic. So my dissertation is epistemological study. And so hundreds of the research papers I analyze and think about why action research is working. And still, I was not clearly understood in my dissertation process, but the good thing is I came up with 5 components which make action research successful. So modify those 5 components, I create the 5 principles of my method. So that's the kind of a process of, based on my dissertation. And then after that, 25 years, I slowly developed this method and to apply this and that, many different things. So I applied probably more than 100 projects I have done. And some of them are very successful, much higher than my expectation. It was very interesting. So before this seminar, I asked a few students about what is the field of thing they want to improve. They want to improve like a time management thing and communication skills and timely manner. They want to deliver their message and so forth. And there are so many things to do. So you want to have organization in your life. So, well, speed up the process. Probably some of the things related with this those 3 students' interests. But one thing is, last year I set up a goal for myself. I'm teaching the Japanese language and also the principal for the Japanese language school at Draper. So interestingly, and also attending the Japanese language world on Sunday. So almost daily, I immersed in the Japanese language environment, even here in Utah. So the dilemma is, I don't have very deep conversation to talk about anything in English. So my challenge was, I want to improve my English. So I began to think about, and also we, as Japanese language instructor, we talk about extensively reading method to improve their reading skills. And so hoping then to understand the method, and I want to improve myself. And so I began to read the juvenile literature from BYU. And then I set up goal to read 1,000 books, those books, by the end of 2021. So I set up the goal the end of the 2020. The result was I couldn't finish that, but I could almost closely to 500. Because I systematically doing this, right? So I do whatever the skills and the talent and so forth, I have a very clear idea and then break down the things and then organize and I create a sheet or write down the titles and the numbers and trace what I'm doing, right? So it was successful, and the interesting result was sometime November or so, it was extremely busy time. I began finishing my Chigenyiku guide. I would first I wrote the Japanese version, and then I was making an English version, but I completely stopped for many months. and then I have 1 week, and then I could write about 50 pages of this guide in English. It was a very impressive thing I felt, but I strongly feel it is a result of my reading extensively. I'm reading so extensively, so English is a kind of a natural flow of thinking is happening in English. So I speed up, probably I speed it up probably 2 times, 3 times faster I could write. So in terms of the time management or so forth, and I one of the projects I did last year is helpful because if we improve the speed of reading, and then when I read the technical books, and a bunch of the books I read, and then I finish within the 1 week or so. But I do not go deep, but because I read the speed reading related books already at the beginning of my kind of a project, right? So I know how to skip and skimming and focus on the certain thing. And so I developed that skill. So that skill development is also helpful. And time management is also another thing, but many other small things. Last year, I have a very interesting organizational activity in my, I like to maintain the old records and old technical papers and so forth. So my room is full of the paperwork, right? And a box full of them. My wife complained, I need to get rid of it, but I do not want to get rid of it, right? So it's hard for me to judge whether I should throw away this or not. And it's very hard for me. So my mind is not working very well for that. So one day I began to, organization is another project. And it became so successful. I already reduced the number of boxes less than half in 1 year or so. And I'm continuously doing this, but it's more difficult. Before it was kind of easy to throw away some of the things. It's so obvious. But now it's a research like a notes and so forth, which is very dense material. And then I am digitalizing it. So that process is much slower, but sometimes it's hard. There are so many other things to do, but how can I do it? But I found a solution, which is I spend only 15 minutes. I set a timer, and then I focus on that, and then move on to the main activity of the day. Only 15 minutes here and here, maybe a couple of times a day. But by doing that, I could do a lot of things. And also the messiness of my room is also improved by set up a time of only 5 minutes. And then I do something to organize, rearrange, and so forth. And only spending 5 minutes helped me to motivate. Toward the end of the day, I was so tired, and so I'm very reluctant to organize things. Motivation is almost zero, usually that. But if I spend only 5 minutes, I can still do it. So that's kind of a change of my motivation, very interesting. But this is a kind of a thing I am doing. And many other things, especially toward the end of the slide, I can show you a very interesting the thing I did. Okay, anyway, the 8 years experience on campus is I did at the beginning, since this method helps a lot of things, so I wanted to introduce to the BYU campus. Then I approached the leadership, and then I wanted to talk, but it was not successful. They did not have ears to hear ideas because there are so many ideas already. So they didn't have time to listen to me. So I decided like a top-down approach is not good. So rather grassroots type of activity I wanted to do. So I switched that, and then 8 years experiences, I just focus on my teaching and talking casually with my student, with colleagues and so forth. That's the thing I accumulated 8 years. And then I noticed this method helps a lot of the thing, especially toward the end of the 8 years. I implement this method for the contract learning for my Japanese language student. And it has been so successful. For the first time in my life, I received a perfect rating from my student, 5 out of 5. It was very impressive, and all of them recommended to do this kind of approach to help them to become a lifelong learner based on the contract learning, based on my method, Shigenku method. And I am doing the 4 major fields of research. One is spiritual proficiency, I call. I would like to, because Shigenku method can be applicable for the spiritual thing. So, and I would like to more systematically help our students to become more spiritually in tune in their learning. So I call it a spiritual proficiency. Improve the proficiency, like a language metaphor, proficiency. The second field is service learning. Dean of Casey Peterson and me started a collaboration in research. Service learning is incredible learning. If anyone is interested, I'd like to share my brief summary of the 20-page papers or so, which collected the merit of the service learning. 54 items of the merit I found through mulling those papers. So the students doing, I'd like to introduce this service learning element into a curriculum. That is, I'd like to do right now. And then another field of study is optimization of our student learning. In what way? I have been studying the brain science and how hippocampus area is influenced by our physical activity. So how can we implement like a physical element into student learning and so forth, and many other aspects of the brain science can help us to help students to learn more. So optimization, optimal learning is the next, the third area I'm working on right now. And another field of study is the scholarly faculties or students as well, the publication level, publishing more successfully. So how can we improve the intellectual productivity? So those 4 fields I'm trying to so the field application, I have done more than 100 the project, personal learning, teaching, human relationships, sports activity, training, game skill development, time management, church unit development, corporate culture change, speed reading, research productivity, prolific writing, organizational skill, art and music skills. Those are things I have been working, and the result was very unimaginable thing happened. For example, the sports activity, I'm not a person to engage in sports activity before, but at the age of 55 or so, when I was in Philadelphia, branch president for the Laotian brother invited me to play tennis together. It was very awkward, really awkward for me to play because hand coordination and so forth, I'm very poor. So I challenged this using my Shigenku method. I systematically train my body and so forth. And then I began to play tennis quite well. And so not that competitive, but quite not so much dragging my partner and so forth. But one day I hurt my right shoulder, and then I grabbed the racket with my left hand and tried to hit. It was so awkward and so difficult. I decided to train my left hand to play tennis. So my method was weekly, I break down into the small thing, and then during the break for the working place, the outside brick wall, I hit the ball like that. Only 5-10 minutes with the acceptance, approval of the building owner, and then I hit ball like that, 5-10 minutes. And then on the distance and volley thing and backhand. So after 10 years or so, I began to play quite well. So on the court, I can start playing tennis with my left hand and serve like that. And so people consider me as a left-handed person like that. So at my age, we can improve like that. If we have a focus and then break down the goal, weekly progress and evolve cycles, and then eventually we can master some skill like that. So there are many interesting things. Even the organizational thing is very impressive, and I was very surprised to things happen like that. Okay, so what is the 5 principles of the Chigeiku method? Everything starts with E, so that people can remember easy. Right? Okay, establish ownership. I tried to rearrange the order, but this is it. Because ownership is a very foundation of personal improvement. So we need to carefully establish ownership. Is it truly important for me? Is it good? This activity is harmonious with my role as a family member or church member or corporate member and so forth. So the ownership is always, we have to be carefully established. Here, locality means everything surrounding our existence, okay, including our internal thing. So locality, any kind of skills, time management, communication skills, and also how can we use the local resourcefulness and management of physical body and using the tools and so forth. So those everything related with activity is a personal thing is locality. So locality is a very comprehensive thing. And so enrich locality is to improve. And sometimes you need to focus on a certain thing and then drilling it and then practice a lot and to improve the quality. If you can randomly doing it and expecting some progress, you cannot do it. You have to focus on some of the aspect, and then 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you have to concentrate on something. Even small amount of time per day is okay. But if we continue like that, you can improve your something, your some skills and so forth, right? So that's the process of locality, enriching locality. Okay, if we have a 2 basic thing, then you are ready to jump into your project. Okay, but our practice for any project, improvement project, that means improve something means that you go into something to unknown area. You have never reached. In my case, I have never hit the serve with my left hand and so forth. So you have to jump into something very unknown, which is very often chaotic. So if we face the chaotic situation, if we if we avoid some chaotic thing and difficult situation, we cannot learn and grow. Right. So embrace chaos is an attitudinal the principle. We need to embrace chaos. The Father in heaven prepare individually perfect curriculum for us to grow. But for our human eyes, that curriculum looks quite chaotic. And then unknown things continuously happen and prevent us to do whatever we want to do. So the chaos is for us, we want to avoid, but actually it is already arranged. Heavenly Father, accidental thing is already He arranged for us. So we need to accept and embrace. So the attitudinal thing is quite different. If you like that, and then you cannot learn in that mode of life. Okay. If we embrace and open our eyes and mind, and then we understand what is happening there and how we can improve. So the 7 P's help us to improve our attitude. One is positive, proactive, patient, peaceful, panic-free, praising, perceiving, and praising. So, because the time limited, I cannot go into details of this, but you can read my summary. Okay, then if we have an attitude, we are ready to learn from a chaotic experience. But evolved cycles, the technical aspect, this is directly coming from education action research. PAR, planning and preparation with planning, put into action, and then reflection. And I ask many people about this. Do you sometimes reflect that most people do activities, plan and do, but they move on to another activity? Tendency of the people do not reflect well. So the key element of the 3 PAR is a reflection. So after evolving, and also this is evolving cycle. Cycle is like with reflection and feedback for the next cycle. Our cycle is not staying on the same plane, same level, but our cycle is going up, like a spiral case. Endlessly we can improve, but we need to evolve, lift up our goal continuously. The elevate reflection is a very significant part. This make our activities almost like a science of improvement. Science is the activity, human activity, where scientists create a community and then present their views, each one another, and criticizing, and also that kind of a critical, like a discussion among the scientist community. We solidified hypothesis and other thing, and then eventually we have very strong foundation of the theory and so forth, right? So that's a progress of science. But this reflection, elevator reflection with 4 R's: recording, number 1, reviewing, number 2, reporting, number 3, and receiving feedback. So those 4 R's help us to elevate our reflection to the level of the scientific endeavor to improve our performance. So those are 5 principles. And based on those 5 principles, we can improve performance very significantly. But knowing this idea is not that challenging, quite easy, but applying or living those 5 principles is quite challenging. Especially Shigenku cycles need to have a reflection. You have to stop and reflect. So that's kind of a self-regulation, self-discipline is a very challenging thing. And also the 4 R's, people do recording. You are keeping record, right? Then I see so many people are keeping record, but when I ask them, most of them negatively answer to me is, you review your record? Most of them do not review regularly. Most of the people review when they prepare for the final exam or sometime like that. But after doing this, the project, the Shigenku-based project, many kinds, I noticed reviewing is a very beautiful, wonderful. Almost like for me, it's a reviewing process is a wonderful journey to the past. It's very refreshing and a very wonderful thing. In the process of reviewing, many times I notice a new aspect of the thing because our context is different when we review the thing. So I like to very emphasize the importance of the review. Okay. Shigenku had about 22, 23 things to remember. And one is number 3 principle, embrace chaos as the 7 P's, right? Positive, proactive, patient, perceiving, praising. Especially I add 2 P's. Perceiving is when we do some successful thing, we should not consider those success coming from our own thing. But a lot of people are helping us. Divine help is also coming to us. So we need to not perceiving any help is coming to us. And praising is praising the divine, the organization, creating a perfect curriculum for us, even the difficult thing we may face, but we need to praise. That kind of attitude is very important. Those 2, I felt, is a very spiritually encouraging thing. This is a very spiritual element. So we need to emphasize and include those things. And then for the 3 principle, mental marking and the focalization, problematization, those are 3 steps I created. One, this is when you do some activities, the new awareness and the new finding is happen in the process of the doing something, not sitting or thinking about the future activity. But a real important learning happen during the activities. So mental marking, when you're doing something, mental mark, okay, I should remember this and to write down later. So mental marking, and then focalization means that if you're talking about or thinking about that concept, you mental mark, I call it the focalization. That's a duration of thinking process. Creating a thinking process like that, just a few seconds, maybe 10, 15 seconds, just of focalization by saying it, talking about, explaining it, you can focalize. And then later, third step is very important. Problematization, I call. Something that you notice, but oh, here I should improve this point. And the mental mark and focalizing and why it happened like that. And so talking about yourself, and then you notice the situation, right? And then without stopping that, but the problematization is later is, how can I improve in such or such? So making a problem. And very interesting, this is a brain science thing, but when you go to bed and then making this problematization, today, this activity I did, that, but why I couldn't do it? How can I do it better? So if you create a problem, sentence of problem in your mind, or maybe you can just write down, then go to bed and then sleep. Very interestingly, for me, when I wake up, I came up with a solution. Our brain automatically thinking, well, even while we are sleeping. It's very interesting. So yeah, that's kind of a three-step. In the chaotic situation, we do learning happen, and then these three steps help. And then the power preparation I already talked about, and then number 5, recording, receiving, reviewing, reporting, receiving. And the reviewing and reporting is very important. My encouragement is, even you may not receive assignment to write a report. I encourage you to do some personal project to write your personal report for yourself. This is very incredible. I call it a light dynamite effect because I have keep record of the things I'm doing, and then accumulation happens maybe 4 weeks or so, and then maybe 10, 15 pages of the record I have. Then I sit down. It's a time consuming, so you have to have create a time, but write down. And I usually do, if it's a typewritten, then I copy and paste, and then organizing the thing, reorganize ideas. Because our findings in our practices happen almost randomly. It's not a sequential thing. It's a very, very unexpected thing happen in a random order. So recording, reorganizing, and categorizing things, and then write like a comment for each category and so forth. That way, I create a report format or summary of my experience, like 1 page, 2 pages of the thing. It was 2007, 8. I was in Philadelphia, and then I was called as a counselor for the branch presidency, and Brother Munasi is a president, and I asked him, can I use the Chigeiku method to improve church activity? And he said, yes, okay, let's do that. And so I start using, I train him about understanding a basic concept of the Chigeiku method, and we try many different activities in the church. 1 year, nothing particular happened, but we try many good ideas and then keep record of what happened. But for the end of the 1 year, we sat together. I asked him to be patient. We spent 3-4 hours together, 2-3 occasions. And then we reviewed our record, and then categorize, and I make it a couple of pages of the summary of what we did. Based on that summary, I shrunk it to just one page of what we are supposed to do based on our experience and the record keeping. Based on that, he called the blueprint for branch growth. And based on that, we organized the leadership training session. And then when we began the leadership training session, in 3 months, our sacrament attendance went up by 50%. And 6 months later, we had a branch conference. And so stake leadership also attended our meeting. So that also increased a little bit, but our sacrament attendance was 100% increase from the previous year. So it is very interesting. I noticed when we summarize what we happened in a report form and create a blueprint, and then based on that, we do the new approach, our branch leadership. Then the power happened like that. Very empowering thing happened in that process. So I began to apply this method into our existing curriculum, my Japanese language course. Again, based Japanese language the learning, especially like contract learning. Students understand themselves better, their awareness increases, their metacognition is raised higher, consequently they become better learners. Usually they do not think too much about how to improve their learning. And they are not thinking about too much. Students have various learning strategies. In this process, I have a lot of small group discussions. I let them do it and write about the experience. And so they have a they become strategic joy in learning, and they become more motivated to learn. Students become prepared for lifelong learning. So this is a kind of the result of the introduction of the Shigeniku and also the learning contract. Okay, so the time is up. So if you are familiar with the Albert Bandura's self-efficacy, the Shigeniku method is really improve your self-efficacy, but those are the things. And then this is OPO that I already mentioned. And okay, so this is the one final thing. This is for me. I taught myself to become an engineer. I have no engineering background, but when I start working for just a laborer for one Indian the owners, and he asked me to lead the supercapacitor development, electrical engineering development, and that 1.5 years or so, our supercapacitors the quality improved 5 times. The ESR, the internal resistance reduced 1/5, and the capacitance is energy storage capability went up to 5 times. And so after a few other things, this is a thing. This is a company president and myself, but this is my own idea of the patent. And so I jumped into the new field of study, and within 3-4 years, I became an expert in that field. And so Shigeniku cycles helped me At the beginning of the technical paper of the engineering, I understood only 10%. So many acronyms, so many equations. It's very confusing, right? But I continue to patiently continue to read the technical paper. After 30 papers, 50 papers I read, and the engineering paper is very short. That's very helpful. But I became familiar with, and then I understood technical papers very much. So no education, no undergraduate study, but I could do it and present for the conference presentation for the majority of them are PhD in that field. Okay, those are the things you can apply this method to improve your skills.
Interested in reading more, remember that ECHO sent out a few days ago through the listserv a couple of documents that have been prepared for us. Thanks for your attendance today. Next week, we are doing an online seminar from someone at a distance. So information will go out about that soon. And I guess it's time to go eat. So thanks so much. Have a good afternoon.
Sorry, I didn't give you the time to ask questions. Please send me any questions. Thank you.